I insist that you do it to yourself because you're present. Shall we put our hands together? Distinguished Nigerians, good morning. When we brainstorm to conduct a public audit of our democracy, especially from 1993 to date, at the SNG caucus level, we decided to repeat what we did in January, as Mr. Bakare has said, when we had issues with Central Bank. We invited the leadership, the governor, the deputy governor, and the central representative of Central Bank to meet with us in this same hall. When we thought it's time to do democracy audit, we extended a right hand of fellowship to the federal government of Nigeria, and we are glad that they sent one of our own to come represent them this morning. My speech is very long. It will take 3 hours to deliver. I hope you learn the up as we rub minds together to provide solutions to myriads of problems facing our nation. Let me begin with a popular cliche. How time flies. That's a cliche that expresses surprise, pleasant or otherwise, about how quickly the seasons of our lives turn. Today I'm struck by the same sense of wonder that an entire 20 years have passed since 1993 presidential elections in Nigeria. For those of us who were already adults in 1993, today brings a lot of nostalgic feelings, reflection, and perhaps gratitude. From 1993 to 2013, a lot of water has passed under the bridge of our lives and nationhood. The water has not only altered the sands of time, it has also washed a lot of debris to our very doorsteps and splashed death on our faces. The 1993 MKO Abiola versus Bashir Tofa election, conducted exactly 20 years ago today, is popularly termed the freest and fairest in the history of Nigeria. It was Nigeria's first taste of a renascent democracy after so many years of military rule, coups and counter-coups. It was an election whose callous annulment shook the nation. Since then, the country has witnessed a lot of changes, for better and for worse. However, none of those occurrences have left the country exactly the same. The 10-year period between the coup that kicked Shagari-led government out of office and 1993 when the presidential elections were held, these were the years of the locusts and the cankerworm combined. The depredation of human and natural resources that led to economic and political stagnation fueled agitations for democratic rule in Nigeria. People earnestly yearned for relief from the abyss of despair they were drowning in, and the 1993 election provided a leeway. Little wonder then the Nigerians invested their hopes and dreams in that election. It took place at a defining moment in Nigeria's history, making a marring heart simultaneously. Who can easily forget the hope and excitement that pervaded Nigeria during that period? Nigerians who had long been enslaved by the chains of despotic military rule were full of great expectations. They desired meaningful leadership. want to serve as an antidote to the rudderlessness and repression the then military government epitomized. The various military and even civilian governments are so badly run the country such that when Nigerians began to clamor for self-rule, what they actually wanted was governance in which they could invest. One chosen by them and for them. Democracy was fashionable because of its many prospects. At that time, we were meant to believe it held the key to a better life, a better developed nation, and consequently, a more meaningful national existence. Thus, Nigerians trooped out expectantly on June 12, 1993. They eagerly cast their votes and patiently awaited the results. They believed, and quite rightly so, that their redemption had come. In retrospect, we can see that the over-enthusiasm around the June 12 elections could not have been otherwise. The country was in dire straits, and when Chief Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola came with a message of hope, Nigerians were quick to latch onto it. After all, what other glad tidings would have sufficed for a people who had been cheated, robbed, raped, and banished to live in the valley of hopelessness and wretchedness? Hope 93 was born. An NKO will become a symbol and an icon of redemption. NKO represented people's longings, and that largely explained why Nigerians saw their hopes reflected in him. He was rich, successful, and colorful, seeming to be everywhere at once. He was also a famous philanthropist whose generous hands spread from education to sports and entertainment, and even to the movement for reparation for Africa. NKO once said that he gave out of a sense of duty, not charity. It became the physical logo of change that Nigerians were earnestly seeking. He personalized both their innermost longing and outward craving for change, to the extent that people reasoned that if he became president, he would probably not be one of those leaders whose first port of call would be to loot the treasury. NKO was set to be Nigeria's redeemer, as it were, and people enthusiastically crowned him a Messiah. Except perhaps one of his townsmen who thought otherwise and played a ignoble role to make sure that was thwarted. What men do, not only live after them, they will catch up with some of them before they leave. We all know how the story of that election ended. The June 12 story actually did not end. Its resilience is why we are here today. IBB's annulment of that election was among many instances of wickedness, a strategy to crush the hopes of the people and indefinitely postpone change. Change would have empowered the people, and IBB forestalled days when it chose the cowardly option of annulment. The year 1993, however, was not only about annulled elections and expectations. It is instructive to note that it was a year of pushbacks and many acts of resistance that claimed many human lives and material goods. Nigerians did not merely roll over and play dead when their votes were annulled, they actively resisted. One other feature of Hope 93 we are not likely to easily forget is the campaign song. The NKO is our man jingle. Do you remember it? Yes, sir. That catchy tune was a song of lamentation from a figure that symbolized the aspirations of many Nigerians. We shall call that person Citizen X for the purpose of this piece. In mathematics, X stands for the unknown, and we here represent millions of faceless Nigerians who remain impoverished under the deteriorating Nigerian structure. In that jingle, Citizen X aptly articulated the manifestations of the many problems bedeviling Nigeria in a way that facts, figures, and data graphically represented on endless bar charts and pie charts would never appropriately convey. Citizen X lamentation captured the agonizing conditions of Nigeria using the best rubric, human indices, in a way that all of us could and still can relate to its angst. It seems no work, no food, no house, no light, no potable water, no viable means of transportation. It laments that there are neither functioning schools nor resources in our hospitals. The entire country, in short, was dysfunctional. This jingle, though a campaign message for a candidate who was seeking the highest office in the land, spoke factually to the Nigerian situation of 1993. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us fast forward to the year 2013 and ask how things are different. Are we better off as a nation? If so, how far have we traveled from the point of Citizen X lamentation? Do we now have better employment indices? No. Is there food security through the length and breadth of Nigeria? No. Is our housing problem a thing of the past? No. Do we have potable water in our cities and rural areas? No. I can't hear you. No. Is there regular and uninterrupted electricity supply? No. Do we have improved transportation facilities? No. What of education? No. Do we have more and better schools? No. Are our hospitals any better? No. How many of the various yearnings of Citizen X in the campaign jingle of NKO, which also represented the yearnings of Nigerians, are being realized? No. The question of infrastructure is just one chunk, albeit a huge one, of the many factors afflicting Nigeria. Apart from physical infrastructure, how far has Nigeria gone in the provision of social and political infrastructure? The question of social and political institutions is germane because they determine whether the infrastructure Citizen X desired and articulated will be realized or not. It is therefore pertinent to audit how much democracy has done for or to Nigeria. Have we indeed traveled far? Or have we merely been circling around the same mountain, barking at the same wrong tree, and yet still hoping for a better outcome in our national lives? At this time, let me pose the question again. From Hope 93 to 2013, when Nigeria has now attained 14 years of unbroken civil rule, how far have we come as a nation? If 1993 signified hope, what can we say of 2013? Angst or what exactly? Question, is 1993 better or worse than 2013? The oil boom of the 70s was one of the critical junctures of our national life. It was a great chance to set the country on the path of development that ended up as a mischance. Opportunity was turned to dust because of the short-sightedness of our leaders. The succeeding years is now fare better, and we still grapple with basic issues up to this moment. In the period that followed the 1999 return to civilian rule, till now, we have seen semblances of boom. Telecommunications, for instance, has revolutionized our social and economic lives. There was a time when the Nigerian banking system was on a steady rise. The stock market was once a choice destination for every Nigerian that had money and was willing to invest. Many of these booms have more or less fizzled out, and Nigerians have lost more than they have gained. The country remains impoverished by many indications. We have blamed various factors for this, most of which are planned on the forces of institutionalized corruption, poor leadership, maladministration, and how they collaborate to cripple us. We also know that the quality of followership itself has not helped matters. Nigeria as a whole is in a state of steady decline. The sad part of this is that we are hardly digging our way out of the rut. Instead, our energies are expended on promoting mediocrity packaged as excellence. For instance, these days, what the political class does, dividends of democracy, is largely the statutory duties of state administrators, overblown out of modest proportions. I'll give you a clear example. I gave a borehole to my neighborhood where I came from and to several other places in my hometown. I was abroad and they called me, please come back. We want to open the borehole and we want to take photographs with you. That is what we celebrate as dividends of democracy. Our local government chairman open boreholes, the governors also open tag roads. What should be normal, just day-to-day regular activity of a responsible and responsive government. The wider issues that challenge Nigeria's development, such as dysfunctional state institutions, are happily neglected. The result is all around us, a broken down system that is programmed to self-destruct. Robinson and Ajimogo, in their seminal work, Why Nations Fail, have brilliantly given all the reasons why some nations are rich and others are poor, divided by wealth and poverty, health and sickness, food and famine. They correctly argue that institutions matter for development and prosperity. Their submission that institutions which hinder development come about and persist because they benefit powerful elites is truer of Nigeria than any other nation. And some of them are not as rich as Nigeria, have developed institutions that enable prosperity for all based on the scope of their skill, education, dreams, and ideas. These institutions free them from the whims and caprices of narrow and selfish elites. In our case, we have only encouraged institutions that hamper growth and development and consequently breed impunity. One of such is the corruption industry, which has ensured that the easiest way to become a billionaire in our climate is pilfering public funds and not through diligent enterprise. In the 20 years between June 12, 1993 elections and today, Nigeria has earned enough money to create a Dubai in each of the 6 geopolitical zones and make our citizens some of the most prosperous people on earth. But what we have instead is collapse of infrastructure, deepening poverty, and if I may announce to you, it was 45% in 1999, but 70% today. Social dislocations, high unemployment rate, and violent crimes. One of the sorest faults in the Babangida administration was the 12.4 billion gold windfall, which we have not been able to do anything about, among several other allegations. But now we have lost count of countries that have made returns to us from the various Abacha deals. Yet only God knows if we have not been rebooted. When Obasanjo came to power from prison in 1999, he set up the Colade panel to review the contracts awarded by the 8-month administration of General Abubakar Abdulsalam. 8 months. That panel discovered that Abdulsalam looted more than Abacha month for month, but nothing happened. Obasanjo himself went on corruption binge, which made Transparency International, a body chaired the Nigerian chapter of, before assuming office, decorate Nigeria as the most corrupt nation on earth under his watch. The $16 billion power project scam stands out among other trophies of corruption in those 8 years, like Ali Botton, PTDF, the National ID Crown, Siemens, and the third time his. Today, Obasanjo is gallivanting around on another leadership recruitment exercise for the country. He needs to tell us what is wrong with the ones he imposed on us. Furthermore, the present administration has not explained to us, and Honorable Minister has brought statistics with me today, which I will present to you, have not explained to us how oil marketers amnestied almost 3 trillion naira from our treasury, as publicly stated by the House of Representatives report, in a year that we allocated 245 billion naira for subsidy. Not a single head has rolled in either the Ministry of Finance or the NNPC, and we have seen on television how the trial of the subsidy thieves could very well be mistaken for the night of 1,000 lives. The state pardon granted to former Bayelsa Governor, Chief DSP Alamiesa, perhaps says what the official position on corruption is. The EFCC presently lies comatose at the site of political corruption, bearing its fines at only petty crooks. People now look up to Britain to help us deal with our corrupt, like it did in the case of James Ibori and banker turned pastor Erastus Akingbola. Corruption festers at all levels of government in our country today, with the teen girls called governors running their states like personal estates and neglecting the welfare of the people. We hear statements like my jet costs only 7 billion, not 9 billion, as the official anthem of governors blowing fortunes within Nigerian airspace on frivolous trips. The 18% monthly allocations to our local governments have become money flushed down the drain. Our governors have mostly turned that to slush funds, while the council officials pocket a large chunk of whatever is released to them. Expecting any meaningful development from this paradigm is the equivalent of waiting for the 8 and 9 wonders of the world. The consequences of a malfunctioning system are everywhere. Nigeria runs a system that is so badly fragmented. From agriculture to manufacturing to transportation and infrastructure, there is no clear link that enables one aspect of the economy corroborate another and effectively too. The various parts of the country cannot leverage on each other's individual strengths to derive mutual advantages. The physical and social infrastructures that should enable interregional trade are largely missing. Businesses hardly thrive, and cottage industries that are supposed to provide an employment base are virtually non-existent. Am I boring you? Overall, we run a country that appears to thrive from time to time, even though it sits on a foundation of nothing. We have continually frittered away both money and opportunities due to our national myopia. Our problems persist. Our redemption appears more and more elusive. To return to the question I asked earlier, are we better off in 2013 than we were in 1993? Or does it merely seem that way? Why is it that Citizen X basic needs in 1993 are still Citizen X basic needs in 2013? Why are Nigerians still dealing with the same nagging issues at the same unsophisticated level they were in 1993? During the presidential debate of 1993, MKO vowed that in 5 years' time, no Nigerian child will go to bed hungry. 2 eventful decades after he had made that bold assertion, Nigerian children are not only going to bed as hungry as ever, some of them in Lagos State are now sitting on bare floor classrooms and practically being threatened with extinction. A recent World Bank figure put the poverty rate at 65.7%. This figure is a source of puzzlement for even the officials of that institution who wonder why, despite the much touted increase in economic activities and decline in the poverty rate, the effect has not reflected in the lives of the common Nigerian. As put by Professor Aboyade recently, ours is a classic case of economic development without growth. I do not mean Professor Aboyade, blessed memory, I mean his wife, Professor Binke Aboyade. Ours is a classic case of economic development without growth. The human indices of Citizen X in 21st century Nigeria largely dispute All the figures Nigerian officials excitedly bandy about as proof of their executive productivity. With all the evidence of dwindling quality of life around us, our leaders still celebrate the delusion that we are the fastest growing economy in the world. It does not quite matter to them that every aspect of our life says otherwise. The figures are fine, Honorable Minister of Information, but the people are not. As we have often said on this platform, no one in his right senses can conclude that Nigerians are poor because our people do not work hard. Indeed, they work very hard, but productivity is low, and the cost of doing business is very high. Neither can anyone blame the daunting poverty of the majority of our citizens on lack of natural resources in certain parts of the country. The resources are all over abundant, but they have been used either to enrich the elite. And people know it and feel it. Our poverty is optional. The primary reason our people are poor is because their leaders make poor policy choices. And they do so because of their apparent lack of capacity, as Chief MK Obiola successfully put it in his Petedo Declaration on June 11, 1994. Here, vintage MKO. I'm quoting him. We are seeking to see people who have shown little or no personal achievement, either in building up private businesses or making success of any tangible thing, being placed in charge of the management of our nation's economy by rulers who are not accountable to anyone. Enough of square pegs in round holes. So today, 20 years after the hopes and aspirations of the poor Nigerians who trooped out to vote on June 12, 1993 were dashed, our major problem remains the leadership's apparent lack of will, courage, and capacity as well as integrity to secure this nation and manage it well. While excruciating poverty pervades the entire landscape of our nation, the poor majority have no means of holding the government accountable, just as the good book says. I'm quoting from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 1 to 3. Permit me to quote. I'm a preacher. Then I return and consider all the oppression that is done under the sun. And look, the tears of the oppressed, but they have no comforter. On the side of the oppressors, there is power, but they have no comforter. Therefore, I praise the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still alive. Yet, better than both is he who has never existed, who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Top on the list of the vulnerable and the oppressed is a Nigerian child who still cannot get qualitative education at all levels in 2013. His or her parents are not part of the money class. Recently, the Minister of Education announced that as things stand, universities are currently experiencing a shortfall of resources and cannot afford to take in more candidates. But that's even at the university level. Basic education in Nigeria, purportedly free, is merely poor education given to the children of the poor so that they can remain poor. While we speak of the decline in the quality of education, we should also talk about the rate of unemployment in the country. Is it okay to audit our democracy? Yes. Unemployment figures are rising, and the World Bank recently published that the unemployment rate in Nigeria is at a shocking 56%. The NLC leaders say it could even be up to 60%. If we were to add this figure to the number of those who are not gainfully employed, we will be further short. We have an army of youths that are angry and frustrated. Their bank grows daily as a means to redress their angst shrinks. As a nation with a high proportion of youths, our army of unemployed youth is tantamount to playing with matches near combustible material. We are inadvertently raising an army of crime entrepreneurs. The issue of medical care is another recurring deficiency in our society. For one, it's no longer a shame that our leaders are always quick to run out of the country to take care of their myriad maladies. In fact, it seems more fashionable to die abroad than at home. For the rest of us who have no options beyond Nigeria, it's a matter of leaving ourselves in the hands of God. The First Lady of the country has traveled consistently to treat an undisclosed ailment, and she gleefully celebrates the God who kept her alive in a foreign hospital sustained by modern machines and well-trained doctors. Our medical bill was paid for or will be paid for by the sweat of taxpayers who are themselves dying at home. Let's talk about power supply. This is one sector where Nigerians, youth and non-youth alike, and necessarily demanded change. This also happens to be where they are consistently let down. There are solid tales of corruption in this sector that runs into billions of dollars, much of it stolen by the so-called fathers of modern Nigeria and their cohorts. The area of power supply is one where Nigerian leaders over the years have single-handedly manifested their wickedness of heart and their apparent nonchalance about Nigeria's development. The inconsistency in their promises about this sector is galling. We have seen how they have blatantly embezzled the money that is meant to bring us light and still turn around to sell us darkness in the form of generators. The latest promise right now is that the megawatts will double by December. May God keep us all till then and beyond. Amen. So, if the handprints of Citizen X remains unrealized, what then has Nigerian gained from democracy all this while? What are the benefits of 14 years of unbroken democratic rule that make all the sacrifices of MKO and other Nigerians who gave their lives in the struggle a worthwhile endeavor? Why did we reject the military government? Only for us to arrive where we are today, a place not quite far from where we started out. But it's 20 years out of which we have had 14 years of democracy, too small to have had our yearnings realized? To be sure, Nigeria's democracy has not been without its gains. For a moment, I will look at the bright side and express some gratitude that the stranglehold placed on the nation by various jackboots is no longer there. Fellow countrymen and women, we're not only in government, we're still in power. What strangles us these days is poor leadership. There are certain gains that democratic rule in Nigeria has afforded us, and they must be acknowledged despite all the shortcomings of Nigeria's version. For example, we have freedom of speech, far better than we did in the past. If I mimicked in those years like I just mimicked now, fellow countrymen and women, you know where I will pass the night. There's also a much freer press than we had in the past. The recent case of leadership newspaper versus the federal government shows how far we have come. So 20 years ago, that would have been a totally different story and a totally different outcome from what we have now. To an extent too, there is a judiciary that still manages to serve as the last hope of the common man. Once in a while, a public official even manages to get sent to jail for economic crimes. They only spend it in 5-star hospitals. These are the gains of democracy in Nigeria. And though they might appear insignificant or inadequate, they still constitute a step forward compared to where Nigeria traveled from to arrive here. We have even progressed enough to have the Freedom of Information Bill signed into law. Somebody say, Bosa! 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 We have progressed. The relative freedom Nigeria currently enjoys is what its weight in gold. Despite all that Nigeria has been unable to achieve, we can comfortably gather here to talk today of June 12, because we have a semblance of democracy. For that, we should be grateful to those who sold their blood for this freedom. Despite these gains, there's still a lot missing in our governance. We still haven't come sufficiently close to free and fair elections. A lot of people are disenfranchised by poverty and illiteracy. We are largely excluded from the governance of our own country. And very critically, we lack good governance. Nigeria is far behind in almost every index that signifies progress, and only takes the lead in the ones that signal retrogression. Right before our eyes, our lives keep plummeting like the Nigerian stock market. We are far from the yearnings we have cried for, and now even hope sometimes seems to be a luxury. And when we speak of hope, I do not mean individualized hope, which religious leaders and motivational speakers sell to their devotees, telling them that their success can be achieved in isolation of the society in which they live. No, not that kind of unhealthy hope that merely opiates. Like one of my pastor friends used to say every time, your tomorrow will be all right. I want to know what is wrong with my past and why am I not succeeding in the present. When we speak about igniting hope for the better life, I mean one based on attainable and sustainable indices. But how do we get there? It's 2013. Where do we go from here? If after 20 years, the basic yearnings of citizen X have not been realized, how can we then hope for a truly modern society with intangible attributes of citizenship, accountability, equality, rule of law, transparency, and social and infrastructural development? How long can we stay around the same mountain, going over the same old issues, while we neglect the bigger visions that can propel our society from its third world status? In short, how do we begin to move from this point to build a strong and healthy nation? That question can be answered by asking how we got here in the first place. The path that brought us here is, as we indicated earlier, one of inordinate recklessness. What can take us out of here should therefore be the opposite. There is nothing accidental about success achieved in the process of building a nation. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and it occurs only when people have a vision, lay out a plan, and they walk towards it. I must say, however, that it is possible for a country to achieve a certain level of development in spite of itself, in spite of its policies, and in spite of its internal contradictions. When it does, such a government becomes comfortable and spins a web of forces of prosperity around itself. It convinces itself that it has enough to get by, and we content the need to build lasting institutions and structures. It will from time to time produce chest-thumping, abracadabra figures of growth and development as indication of its performance, and also as a form of defense against criticisms of its shortcomings. It will blame its perceived opponents for distracting it from the task of nation building. It will insist in the face of hardcore reality that the government is doing its best and that change does not come in a day, and that someday, somewhere down the line, things will change with automatic alacrity. It might even resort to rhetorical flourish, such as promising to go on exile if a bridge is not built, or boasting that people will soon throw their generators away. Those are the strategies of a poorly functioning government. All talk and very little to show for it. In fact, to ward off its critics, the constructive and the destructive, it employs audacious attack dogs and lions to counterwall against perceived and real enemies. It spends so much time on politicking and carrying out acts of vindictiveness against political threats, missing the most important factor it should focus on: institution building. Institution building is critical to whether a country will succeed or fail. And if it succeeds, institutions determine whether it will be sustainable or as the case of Nigeria shows us, be wrecked somewhere along the line. The reason we have angst 2013 instead of hope 2013 in place of the hope that pervaded the 1993 when Citizen X made a call in the jingle I referred to earlier is because his desire are interwoven with the social and political technology that will guarantee them. Those are presently sorely lacking in Nigeria. And as long as we do not get these basics right, the best we can achieve is occasional successes snatched from the rubric of failure. For one, there are no new solutions to be proposed other than to refer us to the ones we have highlighted in the past. And if you want me to put it on your 10 fingers, they are like 10 fingertips. You can begin to count them. What are those things we have proposed in the past? Number one, build institutions. 2, stop corruption. 3, decentralize Nigeria immediately. 4, block government wastage. 5, be more focused on meaningful governance. 6, erect democratic structures. 7, strengthen the citizenry through education. 8, cultivate leadership that focuses on state building. 9, articulate visions and project ideals. And 10, be focused on the people, because that is what democracy is all about. The quest for the benefits of democracy is what made people queue in the sun on June 12, 1993, and the reason we are gathered here today. It is not difficult to see that the many failures of Nigeria, from terrorism to state-sponsored poverty, are symptomatic of the institutional dysfunctionality in Nigeria. Elections of themselves are no substitute to real democratic structures. No matter how much time and resources we expend on them, democracy runs deeper than the superficialness with which we are currently burdened. That's why it remains the best option for Nigeria, and the more reason we should work at it. 20 years is a long time in the life of a nation, and one that should not be spent merely traveling fast to nowhere. In certain ways, the point we are in Nigeria can easily be characterized as a rocking chair marathon. We are moved, even at varying speeds, but we have remained firmly fixed at the same spot. This needs to change, and very urgently too. Nigeria can no longer afford to waste more time than we already have. I thank you all, while I pray for a better, brighter Hope 2013 and beyond. Need we be told we must work for it? Yes, we must. All the very best in our collective future.